Welcome back once again. This is the lesson 3 of Unit 1 of Marketing Analytics. So, I hope you are enjoying this course as it is very interesting. So, today we'll talk about Lesson 3 of Unit 1, which is data interpretation. If you remember, we talked about understanding data in Lesson 1, basics of statistics in Lesson 2, and today we'll talk about data interpretation. So the learning outcomes for this lesson 3 are we'll try to see how we generate data from different sources which are stored in different formats. Then we'll look at some interfaces. It is very important to understand API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. We'll talk about that in detail, and then we'll try to understand the tools which we can use for data interpretation. Excel, Microsoft Excel is one of them, which to a certain scale is very common. And the other tool which I would like to introduce to you is Microsoft Azure Machine Learning for modeling for your business analytics and especially marketing analytics. So let us start lesson 3. This is slide 1. So let us talk about generating data from different sources. In order to explain this, I'll take one hypothetical example. So there is one e-commerce company which is there on the Facebook, and I'm a customer and I'm also on the Facebook. So what I do, I go to the Facebook page of this company and I put this question to the company that I have ordered one product from your company and I would like to know when will I receive that product. So if I have to show you in a diagram, this is what the scenario I'm talking about, which is, though I'm saying is hypothetical, but in the business world we use this, many companies use it. So here is a customer on the left hand side who is asking the e-commerce company that I have ordered one product from your company. When will I get that product? And this question is put on Facebook where the company has an account and has put up a page. So in real time, the e-commerce company picks that question and try to work on it, and within maybe 10 minutes is responding back to the customer that you will get your product in 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Now let us understand the mechanism, how this is done or handled at the back end. So what the company is doing. So in order to explain that, let me look at the second diagram and explain that to you. So the customer has put a question on the Facebook page of the e-commerce company about the product. When can I get that product? Now the first thing the e-commerce company is doing is trying to get the details of the customer from the Facebook because they don't know who that person is. So that person details the e-commerce company is picking from the Facebook, and then it is going into its own database, the company's database where it has stored the data for each customer, and try to pick that which product has been ordered by this particular customer. So getting the details from the Facebook, who that person is, and then picking the product from its own database, what has been ordered. And then these days, as you know, the drones are delivering the products to the customer. So then it is trying to talk to the drone interface as to where are you? Are you carrying the product which that customer has ordered? And if yes, where are you? In how much time you will reach the customer? So this all is happening in real time, remember that. So the interface pushes the data. That means the e-commerce company pulls the data from through the Internet of Things from the drone, and it gets this information that 3 minutes 27 seconds I should be with the customer. And then the e-commerce company is getting back to the customer through the Facebook, replying that you will get your product in 3 minutes and 27 seconds. So the idea behind this hypothetical company example is why I'm taking that you are generating data from different sources. and at each source the data is stored in a different format. So you have to use different interfaces. And API is one such interface, which in this case Facebook is using, where what we call as application programming interface. So you can think of API as a multiple socket which you are putting in your 3-pin socket at home, because you want to connect many devices and they have different requirements. Every device is used for different purpose, and maybe they draw different sort of power. And so what you do is you create a multiple socket, you put it in the 3-pin plug, and then you can draw the power from there. So API is the same. So it is one database at the back, and that has a format, but people want and ask things in different formats. So API is the interface which try to get those details in the particular format which is required at the client. And similarly, IoT, Internet of Things, you are well familiar with the drones. So that is again an interface. And within the company, they are using a database. There is a front end. So that is again an interface. Now, let's talk about the tools that you can use for data interpretation. The first tool, which you all are familiar with, is Microsoft Excel. It's very common and it's easy to use. You have been using it for so many years, and it has very sophisticated, complex tools available, which are statistical tools, for the summaries, for the pictorial representation that we called as visuals. So everything is available. The most important tool in Microsoft Excel I'm going to talk here is pivot tables. Now, when we talk about pivot tables, you have already worked on it. So my idea is just to tell you that you should know how a pivot table works. So what are the basics of pivot table? What are the terms used in the pivot tables? And you can use the pivot tables, as you know, in Microsoft Excel. You can use it in Excel Live for collaboration, and Google Sheets. Google Sheets give you this leverage to collaborate, share at different locations, all the things that you are doing. So to give you one example, a simple example of a pivot table, on the left hand side is the input range, that is your data which you are storing. Just for the illustration of it, so these are the rows, that is the records we call it. Then the field names are date, buyer, type, and amount. In buyer you have mom, dad, and Kelly. Kelly must be the child of the parents, mom and dad, who are there. And then what sort of product, like fuel, food, sports, books, food, music, tickets, and then the amount. So what you do in the output range, you build that pivot table. So you just use the Excel for doing that, and then it can be done the buyer wise, type wise, and what you are seeing as pivot table is nothing but is a summary. So this is the summary of all the data. Maybe you have 5,000 rows or you have 5 million rows. So it summarizes that data for you depending on the fields that you pick, and any changes that you make there are automatically reflected here. So that is the pivot table, which is a summarized representation of the data. You can use the visuals like you see in the second diagram, so which summarizes the data for you in the different graphs, so which you can use. So similarly, if I talk about Google Sheets, you can use the pivot tables, and generally it is on cloud, and you can collaborate with other people sitting at different locations. So this is the URL, you can go there and you can look. It works exactly in the same way as you are seeing the pivot tables above in Microsoft Excel. Now, before I go further, I would like to tell you what I have been saying, that the limitation of Excel is you cannot have more than 1 million rows, or maybe they have added some more, but there is a limitation. As we have seen, the size of data is in bulk. So we took different examples. The companies, even if you look in India, a small company, because of the size of the population in India, even small businesses, when they want to store for marketing purposes data of all their customers and all the transactions, it exceeds that. So it becomes very complex, and you need the reliability, and you need to act in real time. So the tool that we should have, which is commercially and used, and you can also have hands-on, I want to introduce in this slide. So for that, I will take another example. So I would like to talk about a house price prediction model. So what that means is that we are going to build a model where we are going to predict the house prices. It can be anywhere in the world. Zillow is one company which is doing that in many of the countries. They predict the house prices. So what they do is they collect all the data from the past, and they build a model, and then what we call as artificial intelligence, we try the machine learning. That means we try to train the model through the past data, so that it understands what has been the trend, what prices have been there in the past for a particular size of the house. Then we test that model using linear regression model, and you can do that in MS Excel. As I said, is a good tool, but up to a certain scale. And you can use Microsoft Azure ML. Both are from Microsoft. So I'll introduce both to you. So what we do is house price prediction model. On the left hand side in this model, the input that we need for this model is the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, what is the total square foot living area, and what is the total square foot plot area, which is the lot area. So you provide me these four things, and using the linear regression model, I'll predict the price. So that is the model. What you can do is you can do that using Excel, and over here what you are seeing is Excel Online. So in this you put the past prices, the bedroom, the bathroom, the number of bathrooms, and then the square foot living, square foot lot size. And then it has the price, which we are taking as the past price, and then it will predict the price as on today, that is the scored one. So if I use Azure Machine Learning, so what I can do in Microsoft Azure Machine Learning is, this is very interesting. So what the companies do is they put a model at a centralized location on their server, and on the client side they just send a interface, the front end, wherein it is the information that is required. That is a form where they get the information about bedrooms, bathrooms, square foot living, and square foot lot. And then they get a output cell, and the moment they put it, they get the price. So the input data also is stored at different locations. They keep on collecting that data. They make their model learn from that data, which keeps on coming, testing it, and then keep on predicting the price. So let me introduce Microsoft Azure ML to you. So number one, why you should use it. As I said, that number one is because there is huge data. So up to a certain scale, Excel can handle. After that, you need some robust tool to get the results in real time. So also the format of data, the sources of data, it varies. So as a result, it provides you that integrated development environment. So you can do anything with any format. So that is the biggest part of Azure ML or tools like that. It is very easy and flexible. You don't have to give a lot of formulas and other things. It has got a very good graphic interface. You just pull and push and you get the results. And of course, as I said earlier, it handles big data. It is cloud based. That means you don't have to store anything on your hard disk. It is on the cloud, that is on net. And what we are going to do is we are going to use classic Azure ML, which is a freeware, and you can create free accounts, and we'll see the graphic interface. And the most important part is it is scalable and very flexible. So as I was talking in the last slide, this is on the client side, and this is the testing thing also. So we put the price, we put the number of bathrooms, bedrooms, square foot living, square foot lot, and you get a price on the right hand side, which is predicted by this model. So that's the beauty of this. Now let me give you the hands-on on Azure ML, and I recommend all of you to use it, explore it, and use it. Although this is not part of your curriculum, but in your job in the corporate life that you are going to enter soon, I think you will be needing this. And if you know this well, you have an edge over your competitors. So let me start with that. In order to open an account in Azure ML Classic version Studio, you need Microsoft account, and I hope all of you have this Microsoft account. So with that, you please try to sign up in Azure Studio, and you will be given a free workspace on cloud, and you can work on that. Once you have signed in, then maybe I'll give you some homework. One homework I'll be giving today anyway, which is hands-on. So let me show you the environment of this and how to log in. So this is when you go to studio.azureml.net. So you get this. So you see on top right of this window is the free account. So you click on that. Once you do that, then you will find these three options. One is the guest workspace, where it is free for 8 hours, but we'll go for the free workspace, the middle one, the green one we'll go for. So we'll click on sign in over there, because in this you will get 10 GB of storage, and you have the free access, and it never expires. And you can use R and Python scripting in this. So, and you can do all the predictive analytics on this. The third one, if you want to go commercial, then you have to pay for that, which is the standard workspace. So we'll work on the free workspace. So let me show you the working environment, and I'll take one example also, and we'll start with our first experiment in this. So we'll be working in Azure ML. So the first thing is, once you have gone into the free workspace, you will see the interface, the window like this. So on the left hand side, these are the tools which you can use, and mostly we'll be working on experiments for this course, and I give you the liberty to explore all the tools whenever you get time, and it's very interesting and very encouraging, and it is going to pay you heavily in your future if you work on this. But for most part of this course, I'll try to stick to experiments only. So once you click on experiments on the right hand side, all the experiments that you have created, you get a list here. But at present, this will be our first experiment, so we'll start with that. So what you do is, you click on new at the bottom left, and once you click on new, you get this screen. So when you get this screen, there are 4 options. So what we'll do is, we'll pick the first option, which is blank experiment. So we'll create our own experiment. So there are experiment tutorials which you can explore. As I said, there are sample data sets, databases available to you. So you have the flexibility to go and explore as much as you can. But for this particular lesson, I'll stick to blank experiment. So once you click on new, you get the second screen. Then in the second screen, you click in the first option, which is blank experiment. So once you click on blank experiment, so we'll start with our first experiment in Azure ML. Remember, we are working in cloud and you don't have to do anything on your hard disk. Everything will be taken from web and I'll be providing you all the URLs for that. So once you have clicked on the experiment, right, my experiment, so you come onto this, so a blank experiment, sorry, and you come onto this screen. So here on the left hand side, these are the tools which you can use. So you have different databases, like all the tools, whether these are statistical functions. If you are familiar with Python, you have those modules. If you are familiar with R language, you have those modules. And you have web service, you have text analytics, and a lot of things. All the tools which are available, we talked of all the APIs, so they will be available over here. In the middle is your workspace. So that is your canvas. This is where you will work. And whatsoever you do, the objects, this is the graphic interface in the middle, and this is what we call as integrated development environment. And on the right hand side, any object which you are working on or you click in your canvas, in your working space, the properties of that object you will see on the right hand side. As you see on top is the properties. So there are certain parameters which are optional. You can add, you can delete, you can pick, you can choose. So some of the things are mandatory which you have to give, and some of the things are optional. So this is your working environment. Let us start with our first experiment. So what we do is, the first thing is that I'll provide you the URL, and before that, what you do in the second window, as you're seeing on the top left, you see your search window, search box, sorry. In the search box, you type in import. So on the top left in the search where you see the lens, I type in import. The moment I type in import, just below data input and output, you see import data. It will automatically appear. The moment I write import, I see under data input and output, import data. So what I do is, this import data where it is written, I drag it. I drag import data from there, from the left, onto my working canvas. So I drag import data to my working space. So once you do that, you will see a screen like this. So you have drag import data onto your canvas. Everything will disappear, and on top you will see experiment created. So that is the name of the experiment. You right click on that or you click on experiment created, that is the name, and you give any name. You can give the name as my first experiment, right? So that is the name over there. You go there. So once you have imported this data, on the right hand side, please see, it is very important. So I click on import data. It has been selected in my canvas. On the right hand side, I am seeing the properties of import data box. And the first property is data source. That means I am saying I want to import data. It is saying from where, what is the data source. So at the bottom of the window, you see the URL. So this is the URL of the movies which I am providing to you. So this is available online on the web. It is a public data for all the movies. I'll talk about this later on. So you copy and paste in the data source URL. So first thing is data source. You say I want to import data from web URL. So you click on that, you get a drop down, you pick web URL. That is your data source. And then it is asking what is the URL for the web that you have picked. So then you copy and paste it over there. Below that, what you see is data format, CSV. Now what is CSV? CSV stands for comma separated values. So most of the files you will find, so the fields are separated by commas. So that is how these data files or data sets are stored. So this particular file is a CSV file. So I repeat, comma separated values file. So you click on this yes, and then you pick the data format CSV from the drop down, and then you click on CSV for headers. So what happens is the first row which is there in this CSV file is generally the field names, that is the headers for each column. So I say yes. So I click CSV header. I also click the cached results, that is the second option. So what happens is when you fetch the data from the URL for the first time, it comes onto your local memory of the computer. So when you are processing that data subsequently, so if I click this option that use my cached results, it will not go to the web again and again. So it will use the data which is already there in your internal memory. So it will take less time, it will use less resources. So once we have done that, what you will see is the next step is I want to summarize this data. So I have imported the data. So I have given the data source, the URL and the CSV. And then in the next step, what I do on the second window, if you see again in the search box, I've written SUMM, which is the summary. So the moment I write summary in the search box, below you see statistical functions below that, summarized data will appear. Summarized data will appear. So what I do is I drag summarized data from the left side onto my working canvas. So you will see summarized data. So I repeat, I have dragged import data after writing that in the search box. Then I have typed summary and I get summarized data. I drag it onto my canvas. The third step I do is I connect the two. So if you see the circle below the import data, I go there and I drag it to the summarized data. So I connect with an arrow. So this is how we connect. Now this is the graphic interface, how simple it is, no formula, no writing big things. So what I've done is I said I want to import data, I dragged it. And then I said I want to summarize data, I've dragged it. Then I say firstly I import data from this URL, so that is the first part. Then I say I want to summarize that data. Now for summarize data, from which data I want to summarize, so I connect with an arrow that the data which I imported for the first part, I want to summarize that data. And once you have done that, you run it. So at the bottom, what you see is run button. So you click on that run. The moment you click on that run, what you get is it will take few seconds or minutes depending on which part of the globe you are sitting in. So you get, once it is done, a green tick against import data, it has imported, and then summarize data, green tick, that means it has done that, and on top it is written finished running. So it has been done. Now what we need to do is we need to look at this data. So how will we look at this data? So I can look at the data which has been imported. I can also look at the data which I have summarized. So what I do, I go to import data and I right click on import data. Once I right click on import data, I get this drop down which says results dataset, and then I go to visualize under that. So firstly I right click, I go to result dataset, and then I go to visualize. The moment I click on visualize, so I get this screen after that. So this is the screen where it has imported the data. Now if I look at this data set, so it is my first experiment, import data, and this is the results of the import. So there are 5043 rows and there are 28 columns. That means there are 28 fields in this. So then the first field is color, then director name, and like this. The third one is the critics who have given their reviews. So this is the number of critics who have given the review for that particular movie. Now for color, this is whether the movie is in color or black and white. So for example, the first row is the director is James Cameron. And there are 723 critic reviews for this. the duration of the movie is 178 minutes, and so on. So like this, there are 28 fields, and automatically on the right hand side, since I am at the critic review, that is the field I have highlighted. So it is giving the stats automatically done. Whether it is 1 million, 1 billion data, it will do automatically. So the mean is 140, median is also there, minimum value is also there, maximum value is also there, standard deviation, unique values, total number of unique values are 528 for this particular field. And then the missing values, there are no data entry for this field. So there are 50 such values which are missing, which are blank. And the feature type, this is numeric. And then if you go below, you will find the histogram there. So you can see the visualizations, the pictures. Now, if I click on the summarized data and I want to see the results data set, so this is my first experiment. The second box was summarized data. So I've right clicked on that and results data set and then visualize, I get this. So in this, it is giving the summarized data. So for there are 28 columns. So it becomes rows here, and there are 23 columns here, as you can see. So first field is color. So it has summarized data for color. What is the count? So there are 5024 colored movies, right? What is the unique value count? It is 4. Missing value count is 19, right? So like this, then comes, for example, duration, which is numeric. So the count is 5028. So that is the duration of all the movies summed together. So unique value count is 191. So unique duration, there are 191 unique values which are not similar to each other. So missing value 15 are missing. Minimum duration of the movie is 7 minutes. Maximum duration of the movie is 511 minutes. So this is how. So in data interpretation in Azure ML, you can visualize the data, you can visualize the summary, graphs, you can use single quantity, two quantity, you can set up the correlation, you can do the hypothesis. And if you want to join two data sets and you want to derive certain specific queries out of it, then you use SQL. SQL is the backbone for databases, which is structured query language. And you need to know the basic commands for structured query language, which is SQL. So what I'll do is that you create your accounts in Azure ML in Microsoft, and then I'm giving you this homework, which you don't have to do in 1 or 2 days. You can take 1 week or 2 weeks. This is a little bit sort of a project, maybe an assignment 1, which I'll be evaluating later on if you're able to do it. So what we are going to do in this is a practical live example, and we have talked about this. So you are to predict the credit card defaulters in the future. So this is a prediction, and I'll provide you the data, which I'll be showing you just now, and you have to use the Azure ML. So it will be very interesting for you to work. You can work as a group, all 3 of you, or you can work individually. It is your choice. So what the data is from Taiwan. So this is basically credit card defaults. So the data that we have has around 30,000 rows, and there are 24 fields, which are the columns. The year of the data is 2005. This is in public domain and you can use it. The fields, very important for you to understand. The first one is which are of help to you and which are mandatory for you to understand. First one is the limit balance, which is the credit limit. Second is the gender, the education of the person, the marital status, the age, and then comes from pay 1 to pay 6. These are the codes for payment status for 6 months. So what it is doing is, it is storing the payment status of last 6 months. So pay one is for first month, pay two is for second month. So two things it is recording for each month. What was the payment which was to be made by the client for the credit card, and what payment amount has been received. So one is the bill amount and another is the payment amount for each month for the last 6 months. And if there is a default, like there was a bill amount but there is no payment amount, so whether there was a default, if the value is 1, that means defaulted. If it is 0, not. So what we are going to do, we need to find out the defaulters in the future. So who are the likely defaulters from this database, which we think are likely to default? So if you remember, we talked about FICO, the company which was trying to prevent frauds, who is working with financial institutions all across the globe. So they use this predictive model, which is to predict the defaults. And based on that, they try to prevent the frauds. So this is your homework, and tighten your belts and start working on this, and you will learn the Azure ML through this. So this is the URL for the database, which is credit card defaults database from Taiwan. So that is all from my side for lesson 3 of unit 1 on data interpretation. Let me summarize the things for you. So we saw that how you can generate data from different sources. What are the pitfalls, because the format is different at each source, and how you can use some of the tools. And the simplest tool is and the most effective is pivot table from Microsoft Excel. In order to collaborate, you can use Google Sheets, and one of the very solid tool, which is very robust, flexible and scalable, is Microsoft Azure ML. We'll be using the classic version of ML Studio, which is free, and you will be working on cloud, and I've given you some homework for that, and this tool will be using for interpreting data, for summarizing and visualizing the data. As you know, at the end of the session we always have a quiz, so there are 3 questions, and be ready with your notebook and the pen, and open up your minds. Let us see how you answer these. Number 1 is, what CSV stands for? Question number 2 is, what API stands for? Question number 3, what SQL stands for? Hopefully you have written the answers, because I could see you are very much interested in knowing about the models and the tools. So the correct answers for CSV is comma separated values, API stands for application programming interface, and SQL stands for structured query language. So that is all from my side. If you have any questions, you can write to me at gsinghjmt@gmail.com, putting up what you would like to ask, and when you want me to be there for any session, or on the phone or through email. And the last thing, as you have seen, I have touched upon a lot of things in this lesson, and if you want to go further, you want to practice more, learn more, so on pivot tables, I recommend you to go to this URL, the first one, where you will try to, if you know already, that's fine. If you don't know, you can go there, and if you know, you can go for some advanced features. So this is a good guide on pivot tables. The second one is on Google Sheets, the link which I provided, so you can go there and check the basics about the pivot tables using Google Sheets. And the third one, I would recommend all of you to go, where you can create your experiments, and it will help step by step how to use Azure ML for creating your experiments. And I strongly recommend that you explore as much as you can Azure ML, because that is the future, that is what you will need in times to come. And in case you want a special session on Microsoft Azure ML, please do send me an email suggesting day and time when you all are available. Thank you very much. See you next time. Goodbye.